It's not one of their goals. Washington Post reports this, quote, with little chance of improving Trump's standing, Trump's advisors see the only option as damaging hers, Kamala Harris's. It's in that context that we have to cover these next 60 days, right? And it's in that context that the campaigns are preparing for the next debate a week from tonight. Or rather, only one campaign is preparing for the debate, Donald Trump's press secretary telling NBC News this. Quote, he does not need traditional debate prep because unlike Kamala Harris, he has a command of the issues, end quote. Now, Team Harris, on the other hand, is reportedly buckling down for full mock debate sessions and prep. NBC News reports this, quote, while Harris's team is preparing to talk about a variety of topics, the campaign very much views the optics of the debate as critically important. To that end, the source said, Harris and her team are focusing on homing in on how to needle Trump to rattle him. In that sense, the source said it's going to be less about substance and more about showcasing Harris as a woman who isn't scared and isn't going to cower and who is standing up to Trump and holding him accountable. It's something she's prepared for her entire political career.
Our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Right here at home.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on this stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party.
But, Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to add, but Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I'm
speaking.
Yeah, you can have 15 more seconds. And then we'll give the Vice President a chance to respond.
So I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back?
Critical next debate as the next big event in an historic and frankly unpredictable 2024 election campaign season is where we begin today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. Former Senator, co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast, Claire McCaskill is here. Also joining us, MSNBC political analyst, host of the upcoming podcast In Sync with Alexi. Alexi McCammon is back, and executive director of Republican Voters Against Trump and publisher of The Bulwark, Sarah Longwell, is here. Her group has a brand new multi-million-dollar ad campaign out. It is absolutely smoking. We're going to show it to you in a couple of minutes. But I want to start with you, Claire McCaskill, on the state of the race and what your thoughts are about how we cover these next 60 days.
I think it's really important that we not cover Trump on what he calls Kamala Harris, because his only campaign strategy appears to be to denigrate her, disrespect her, along with hosts of other people, including women in this country. I really think she has figured out something really important, and that is deprive this guy of oxygen. Don't engage. If he wants to get out in the campaign trail and talk about his tax plan, if he wants to talk about what he is proposing for this country, and he says it with any shred of truth, then he should be covered like a presidential candidate. Otherwise, he should just stay on his golf cart eating cheeseburgers. I think that's where his campaign wants him, because he's not even campaigning this week. I think they figured out we can't shut him up, so let's shut him in and make sure he just stays on the golf course. And covering the fact that he's not working at this, covering the fact that he's lying is very important. But acting as if there's some false equivalency between what Kamala Harris is campaigning on and about and what Trump is campaigning on and about doesn't serve this country well. And frankly, it's a poor reflection on the media if that happens.
So, Claire, as we head into this week before the debate, what are your thoughts about what will be contrasted before the American people? I mean, you and I have had a lot of these conversations on and off TV. I think it's important that we sort of show how we grapple with them. I mean, I said this to someone today, I've spent 9 years sort of orienting myself, especially after the Dominion trial, and we saw the inner workings of Fox News. What they were doing was obviously operating as an arm of the Trump candidacy. So if they showed Trump, I didn't think we should. And I've had strong views about platforming him. But now that they shut him down, the minute he starts talking about wind and gas and whatever else he's blurting out, I wonder if we should be showing people that. I mean, what are your thoughts about the most basic coverage decisions we make over the next 60 days?
I think it's hard. I do think it's hard. I think Fox has been cutting him off because he's gotten really boring. I think they've been he loses his crowd about 60 minutes in. Even the most diehards start wandering away because, whatever he calls it, and frankly, allowing him to call it the weave is so silly. It's not oratory. It's a crazy town. And they start wandering away after a while because it's boring. His act is getting, Sarah has said this, I think, very effectively. And I'm stealing a little bit of her stuff here.
We all are at this point.
His whole act has become very tired. Yeah. And I think Fox is cutting away because it's boring. We should not cover him when he's doing nothing but spewing lies. We should not platform that. If he wants to come on and do an interview, I think that would be one thing. If he wants to talk about policy, that would be another thing. But it is a very hard decision when a major political party has nominated this guy. There has to be coverage, but I think we have to be careful how we do it because we promote something that is not really in the country's best interest if we treat him like he's a normal candidate, because he's not.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, one of the heartening things about all of your data and research, and I too find myself quoting you again on and off TV, is that the voters see it. They see him as not having any interest in their lives. They are aware of his criminal record. The character stuff has caught up with him without ever uttering the word character. And I wonder what your thoughts are about these final 60 days.
Yeah, well, look, let me make a robust case for platforming Trump. In this moment, look, he is the nominee of the Republican Party, and I think in some ways that's case alone. But I'll tell you, I think it's really important that voters see Trump often unfiltered, because here's a thing that I know from doing focus groups every single week, maybe multiple focus groups for over the last now many, many years, which is that the more voters see of Donald Trump, the less they like him. When Donald Trump is invisible, when he is less visible, right, his approval ratings go up. When he is more visible, his approval ratings go down. And so we want the American people to see him in his rambling, insane glory. The fact is, kicking him off Twitter and shunting him over to Truth Social has essentially protected it's protected Trump, and it's kept a lot of voters from seeing. I mean, if you were to take a spin through Truth Social, sometimes people grab one or two screenshots and they report on them. But if you just were to look at it as an average voter, you would say, these are the ramblings of a deranged lunatic, and America needs to know what it's getting when they elect Donald Trump. I listen to voters, and there's a little bit of Trump amnesia from, when Trump says, were you better off 4 years ago? The answer is no, we were all stuck in our houses because you mismanaged a pandemic and lied to everybody about what was actually going on. I mean, people have to see what they would get with a second term of Trump, which is somebody who is now going into 2024, much older, much less tethered to reality, much less good at articulating his positions on things. And so I say let Trump cook and let the American people see him, because the more they see him, the less they like him.
Well, Alexi, to that point, he is, well, here, let me do what Sarah's suggesting. Let me show you some of his greatest hits in debate moments.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
We need to put more money into the Social Security Trust Fund. That's part of my commitment to raise taxes on the wealthy. My Social Security payroll contribution will go up, as will Donald's, assuming he can't figure out how to get out of it. But what we want to do is to replenish the Social Security Trust Fund.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
To Sarah's point, Alexi, he's not gotten better at that. And I mean, we could have done that for 20 minutes. There was talking about blood coming out of Megyn Kelly's eyes in other places. There's telling the extremists to stand back and stand by, which they did, to tragic consequence on January 6th. And this may be the only debate, so all eyes will be on Donald Trump a week from tonight.
Yeah, and those clips are a good example, while not comprehensive, as you mentioned, of why he and his team are insisting that the microphones should remain muted, because they know he cannot control himself on his own, and that his normal behavior is that of an erratic person who is willing to not just say something to interrupt or counteract the other person's point, but to denigrate them and to make fun of them or belittle them oftentimes. I mean, I think it's likely that we will hear some sort of sexist or racist attack against the vice president at this debate. You guys remember the NABJ conference? Trump couldn't even handle a black female reporter asking him a question about his own words without having a meltdown. I think we will see almost the exact same situation, just by way of having a strong black woman standing next to him, going toe-to-toe with him, and not showing that she's afraid of him and his so-called locker room talk.
You know, Claire, someone said to me today that the most damage Harris does to Trump is ignoring him, that her answer to Dana Bash in the interview about his racist, misogynistic attacks on her, saying, same whole playbook, next question, is the thing that, and Fred Trump said the same thing. His nephew said the worst 9 days of his life were the first 9 days of Kamala Harris's candidacy, when there wasn't any room in the news cycle for any of his bizarre rantings and ravings. How do you deploy that on a debate stage?
Well, first of all, she's got to do what she does very well, and that is pivot and punch. She is I have to giggle when anybody says she needs a script. You know, if you've done courtroom prosecuting, if you've actually looked a jury in the eye and been responsible for proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt to put somebody in prison and remove their liberty in this world, then you have to think on your feet, because there's no script. You don't know what witnesses are going to say. You don't know what objections are going to be made. She knows how to think on her feet. She knows how to pivot and punch. She's going to need to use her sense of humor, so people do get this sense that while she's strong and tough, she also can be self-deprecating, and she can have joy in her heart at the same time and be easy to live with for 4 days in your living room. That's the kind of balance she has to walk. But I'm confident she can do it. And I'm confident she can get under his skin, because she can be just